Welcome, ladies. All right. While everyone is arriving, it's a great time just to take a moment and start to ground yourself. So closing your eyes and just beginning to draw your awareness into your body. So just taking a moment to really check in, notice where there's any tension or tightness. Bringing a little breath to anywhere where you feel that tension and tightness. And also imagine that you're able to bring some Shakti to that place, meaning that you're able to bring some of that healing feminine nectar with the breath to just start to unwind. So maybe breathing in and noticing if you've got tension in your neck and your back, just doing a little small motion, breathing into it, releasing. And with your eyes closed, tuning into the parts of your body, making contact with the seat beneath you. And after a few weeks now of doing this practice, it'll start to become more immediate that you can feel yourself drop into the pelvis as soon as I say, all right, bring yourself down into that part of the body. Perhaps you're already noticing that you have a little more sensitivity there or awakeness, aliveness. And immediately starting to drop in and allow yourself to soften. And then dropping that cord of connection from your perineum, from the very center point of your pelvis, just feeling that cord begin to drop. And as I said, it's just going to become more and more automatic. Like, oh yeah, am I plugged in? Let me plug myself in. Let me feel that cord dropping down all the way to the center of the earth, wrapping itself around. And let me just get a little juice. Let me feel like my pelvic area, my core, my root is connected to Mother Earth's core, and that electricity, that aliveness, that energy can start to be resourced. So starting to breathe some of that in just very lightly. And with your eyes closed, we'll do 3 Ma chants together. And you should all be muted, so you'll hear my voice in your own, but not the other ladies' voices right now. So inhaling. The last one through the heart. Just taking a moment to breathe in, sitting in silence, feeling that sound vibration moving through your body. Perhaps taking in one breath and exhaling it out. Just feeling the deliciousness of that breath, the deliciousness of the aliveness of your body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come into the classroom with all of your beautiful classmates and sisters. So one thing I want to point out is that when we do the chanting, you may notice that the first one feels kind of soft, and then the second one, there's kind of a depth to it, like a little more of like a rumbling feeling. And then the third one, I'll often say like through your heart. And as we do those 3 Ma chants, I feel like we're honoring each of the 3 faces of the Divine Feminine that we're getting to know in this course. So the first Ma is for the Sensual Goddess, and we really feel that in our sexual center. So it's really letting that Ma emanate out of her temple, her home in our body. The second Ma is the warrior goddess. So that's the fierce space of the feminine, and just really feeling into the gut fire and that sort of that strength and that unapologetic power. And then the third Ma from the heart space, from the compassionate goddess. So that's the reason some people, when they chant, like to keep each chant like the same tone. And here we kind of go on a little journey with it, and that's why. And I suggest, if it feels good to you, to try doing some of the chanting in your morning practice and just feeling how some sound vibration is in your body. It's very grounding and aura cleansing. So I want to just up front acknowledge I'm loving the conversations that are happening on our Facebook page. And there's one woman, Julia, who's never going to be able to be at any of our live classes, who's been very active on there because she's in Germany and it's the middle of the night. And so I just want to say, hi, Julia. And really appreciate the conversation that she's bringing in, and how much herself she's bringing to really engage, even though she can't be here live. And I noticed there's about 5 of you, I think, that are really active on there. Emily, Nicola has been really active, Faye, yeah, I think that you've been kind of posting the most. I think Jen and Lindsay have been on there a little bit as well. And for any of you that haven't visited the page yet, there's an Embodied Feminine Leadership Facebook group. I think that you are all in there now. I believe you've all connected on Facebook, and I put you into the group. There's a lot happening, so I definitely recommend just getting on there, share. And one of the things I want to attempt to do this evening as well is, in the parts that are interactive, bring into the conversation some of the women whose voices we haven't heard. There's some women who are more comfortable, that know me a little bit, have worked with me before. So some of those women I know have been a little more vocal in the first couple of classes, but I'm gonna call you out, because we are, we're a pretty intimate group. We're 17 women, and so you can't really hide from me, and we want to hear you. So I mean, if you're really mortified and absolutely don't ever want to be called on, you can reach out and let me know that. But otherwise, I'm going to start to call people out that might not have their hand up, just because I want us all to feel seen and heard, and I want you all to get to know each other and not always have to see people on speaking and being seen. So I am so excited. I have to tell you, coming up to tonight's class, I just get really happy when we get to go into the Sensual Goddess, because it's just such fun energy. And she's just so playful. And I know what is going to occur for you. We're entering into this zone of play, of pleasure, of desire, of just really awakening your sexuality and your sensuality. And not to say that as we work on this, that other stuff doesn't come up, because when we move into awakening her, the blocks and the resistances and the issues and the shame will also be touched on too. So there may be increased emotions starting to come through as well, but it's all really welcome. And one thing I want to acknowledge too is, today we're going to begin our sensual goddess journey with Aphrodite. And it just so happens that a few days ago, I don't know if you're into astrology, any of you, but Venus went retrograde. So Venus being also Aphrodite, Venus the Roman name, Aphrodite the Greek name. And she is retrograde, which means that she's not moving forward right now. She kind of is standing still, and it seems like she's going backwards. And so sometimes astrologically people will say, well, kind of like Aphrodite's weak right now, or Venus energy, which is this feminine, sensual, sexual, and all the qualities that we're going to talk about with Aphrodite this evening, that this is kind of a downtime for her. And I feel like it's actually an excellent time to do this work, because really retrogrades, from my perspective, not to get too much into astrology, but from my understanding, I'm not an astrologer, but I'm into it, so I know quite a bit, is that, this is a time where we're kind of revisiting things, retracing things, and within the realm of Aphrodite and Venus, within ourselves. And so it's kind of like in some ways she might be in a more introspective place. So and you'll all have your own experience, but maybe it's like she's not out partying in the streets, but it's like she's kind of working some stuff right now. So it's an excellent time to be working with her energy. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that. I have to just do one thing. Hold on 1 second. I'm right here. Oh my goodness. It's funny, you saw me do this earlier, but I have this little heater. I turn it on and then it gets so hot as soon as I start like, teaching or doing a session, I have to turn it off. Before we get into the details of Aphrodite, let's spend a little time just really understanding the sensual goddess. And if you can remember that triangle, on the base of the triangle, we have the left side, the sensual goddess, and the right side, we have the warrior goddess. And this is that inner yin and yang energy of that masculine feminine dance that happens within us, even as women. And so when we go into the sensual goddess, it's like you can't get any more feminine. Like this is the essence of feminine energy. It's like the feminine within the feminine, everything that defines us as being feminine. And it is really an inner experience. And one of the reasons that I feel like this work can be so empowering for women is that we live in a culture that has really taught us to connect to this archetype in a superficial way, in an externalized way. And this is about really taking this power back and really claiming it for ourselves as women. And the way that she is portrayed in our culture often is as like kind of like the plaything for the masculine, because our whole culture is kind of looking at everything through the masculine lens. Everything's been defined through how they see this archetype, how they see the feminine, how they see women. And then we're kind of then taught to try and match up to that, almost like being a drag queen in your own, like, within your own gender. It's like, I'm going to be feminine. And here we get to discover really what that internal experience is, what the inner essence of the feminine is, and how it's defined through us as women. So in our culture, that more externalized, superficial, like through the male gaze version, we focus on the look of things. We focus on things that feel more manipulative and kind of like, how can I get mine in this like male dominated world kind of way. And sometimes that can really be a turnoff for us as women and kind of be like, I don't even want to deal with that, and kind of go the other direction. And you may embrace more the compassionate goddess or the warrior goddess because you don't want to be associated with that. And this is a great invitation to revisit everything feminine, everything pink, everything. And again, speaking of the retrograde, it's like revisiting and reevaluating, like what does this really mean to me? And how have I maybe tried to live up to a certain idea of this through what my culture told me it was supposed to be? And either I embraced it or rejected it based on that. This is really going deep into yourself and really being able to also visit places that have to do with your little girl, your inner little Aphrodite, this like pure little feminine being that was really in existence before you understood the male gaze, before you understood how all of these energies were affecting you and maybe shut you down. It's about really bringing you home into your senses and into your body. So I want to actually, I want to say a couple of things, and then we're going to go look at some images together. One of the things that I want to say is that, the framework for this course is leadership, embodied feminine leadership. And this energy is one of the things that when we conceive of ourselves in our culture as a leader, that we tend to drop first and feel like doesn't necessarily fit with the ideas of power or leadership that our culture has taught us. And it's really detrimental to us as women, because it's like we're disconnected to like one of our biggest superpowers as a woman and as a leader and as a human being that is powerful. It's like a cord has been cut because there has been so much shame around connecting to her. Anything that has to do with sensuality or sexuality. It's like we have to leave that at the door because of the fear of it being misinterpreted. The discomfort that we feel may arise for other people, for men in particular, and really just because our culture has told us that these two things don't go together. And as we are able to really embrace her and not leave her at the door when we walk into the boardroom or we walk into a space where we're a leader. And also one of the things that happens is that when we cut her in those places, we end up cutting her out almost altogether. And we start to be able to not even connect to her in the places where it's sort of okay for her to be. But when we are able to have her in all areas of our life active and not leave her out, bring her in, what happens is that we become much more resourced as women and avoid the burnout. It's like we're connected to our pleasure, which is a fuel for us. And it's kind of like the grease in the wheels of everything that's trying to operate within us. And if we leave out pleasure, if we leave out this connection to our sexual energy and our sensual energy, it's like it's like everything's like drying up and like the gears are kind of not able to run. And so when we bring her in, there's a way that we're resourced. We feel filled up, overflowing. There's a way that everything has a flow and an ease in it. And we also magnetize to us. And we receive things instead of having to feel like we've created a narrative for ourselves, which is the narrative our culture gave us, and we've adopted individually, which is a narrative that, pain, no gain. I've got to like, not that there's in value in hard work, but we veer so far over to that, and we leave out the pleasure, and we leave out the sensual juice, that we live in this narrative where everything has to hurt, where everything has to be hard, where it has to be difficult, and where it's just a push and a push and a push and a push. And that's where we get tapped out. And she reminds us, she's like tapping us on the shoulder, whispering in the ear, like, hey girl, it can be a lot more simple. You've got magic between your legs. You've got the ability to make things happen effortlessly. And that reminds me of a little story that I wanted to share. I think I mentioned it in the email for this week's class. And, again and again, she comes and kind of whispers in my ear, but I got a really big one this Sunday, which was so perfect because I was like, yes, it's Aphrodite week. Of course, this happened. But I moved recently from Venice up to Topanga, which is this little mountain canyon area in LA. And it's really, really hard to find a place here. It's like everyone wants to live here. It's really expensive. And it's just like there's like kind of scarcity in the housing market. And I'm living in a place that I'm subletting temporarily. And I know that, coming up the next few months, it's going to end because it's a house that's for sale. And so I've been looking for a new place, and something popped up this Sunday that looked like it should be perfect. It was just like, it was a good price. It's the exact neighborhood I wanted to be in. It has this beautiful deck outside where I can like do my morning practice and my yoga. And there were a lot of things that were great about it. And there was just a feeling I had when I walked in there. I was like, this isn't for me. There's something energetically tight about it, and I'm not going to flourish here. And I was really kind of going back and forth, like, should I pursue this? Because the woman seems to really, want me as her tenant, and it's, a great opportunity. And I just was like, no, I'm going to feel it when I walk into the space. It's going to feel magical. I'm going to know it. And it doesn't have to make sense. And even if I'm potentially putting myself in a position where in a couple months, I don't, this place is up and I don't have a place to live, I'm going to trust, I'll sublet a place. Like, I'm going to trust the magic ride. But the inner dialogue was a little bit like, are you being too magical? Like, maybe you just need to get into the logic, and you need to, and it was a little bit of a back and forth with this. And so I have this necklace that you may have noticed that I wear, and it says "In Pursuit of Magic," and I wear it basically every day. And I had put it on that morning, just as I always do. And then I went and I saw this place, and then I went nearby to a little hike and sat outside and kind of meditated and came home, and I'm on my moon cycle. This is where it gets a little odd. So I'm going to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom and I pull my pants down, and I'm like, oh, like, it's time to change. I have a little liner in there. I'm like, it's time to change it. And as I'm pulling it out, I'm like, I feel like there's some like gold in my panties. And I'm like, what is in my panties? And you know how you have this little pocket in your panties that's right across the crotch, which is like this double layer of fabric. And sometimes like lint gets in there. And I'm like, there's something in the crotch of my panties. And I'm like, and it seems like it's a necklace. And I'm like completely mystified. Like, what could it be? And I pull it out, and it's this necklace, and it says "In Pursuit of Magic." I'm like pulling it out, reading "In Pursuit of Magic," like dangling this gold thing. And I am just like, how did this get off of my neck? I'm wearing tight yoga clothes, like tight yoga pants. How did this get off my neck, not get lost like out in the hike or out in the world somewhere, make its way down through here under the tight elastic, through my yoga pants, into my panties, under the pad, into the pocket perfectly? Like, it's illogical. It's illogical. I mean, ladies, just like think about it on your own body. Like, like the chances of that occurring somehow is like zero, like 1 in like zillion billion. Like, it's just like, that is basically impossible. It's completely illogical. And it wasn't lost on me that it's the In Pursuit of Magic necklace, and I'm having this conversation about, am I being too magical here? And it was just like, she was like, no, like, shit doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to line up logically. You have got, and it was like, you've got magic, like, in your crotch, girl. Like, trust your pussy magic. And it was like such permission. Like, I suddenly was just like, I'm not going to worry too much about this, because this is being handled. And my soul's got it. The magic is, we are wielding magic. So, and these are the kinds of things that I feel like the more you get into working with the divine and with the goddesses, like, these kinds of things occur because they want to communicate with you, these goddesses, and they have all these different ways to do it. And something like that was just clear. It was like, okay, I got the message. So this power that we have between our legs is what we're starting to delve into for the next 3 weeks. And this magic and like our feminine, like, it gets so, I can feel it just like moving to me right now, but it's like our feminine flower, like our feminine essence is so fucking powerful. It is so magical. And I've been doing this work for a long time, and I know that it's like really the tip of the iceberg, even that I'm working in, and like the other women that I know who do work like this. It's like, we're still, because it's been so repressed for so many thousands of years, that we're just beginning to delve back into deep magic and the deep power of the feminine. Like, I literally, I believe like we can you know, move things like out in the stratosphere. Like, and when we work with Oshun next week, we're going to talk about her magical honeypot. Like, she specifically speaks about magic with the sensual goddess energy, but it's like truly we can create magic. And the power that we have as women is so incredibly powerful that it had that people felt that they needed to really sublimate it and really very purposefully hide it underground. So in the first week session, we talked about Adam and Eve in the Bible and these stories. And it's like everything about that Eve story is essentially, it's like a story that was crafted to disempower women and to like really direct women away from the goddess. It's like the tree with the fruit and the serpent and all of that. These are goddess symbols. And it was like specifically crafted for women to not connect to the goddess, basically. And for thousands of years, these are the predominant religions and the thinking that's been on the planet. It's been very purposefully like pushed underground, and we have been very purposefully shamed around this power. And I always think of that, there is that monastery in Greece that's like the oldest monastery. It still runs on Byzantine time, and it's like the Harvard of the monasteries. And a woman, it's on an island, and a woman has never been able to set foot there, because if a woman set foot there, it would so disrupt the energy that the men wouldn't be able to focus on their spiritual practice. And we see that in like yoga, retreat places like ashrams. I've been to tons of yoga ashrams, and there's a lot of shame around women's bodies and covering up and like separating women from the men, and because it's so distracting. And so if we teach women that their superpower of seduction, which can be a beautiful thing. There can be such a thing as sacred seduction, of magnetism, of pleasure, of joy, of receiving. If we teach women that this is evil and something to be ashamed of, we have taken away from women their primary power. And we're just now beginning to start to tap back into this. And yeah, so we get to spend the next few weeks just really exploring this. And I encourage you to have fun with that, to move through and notice like where you have shame around it, where you have really internalized and adopted these patriarchal voices. And really, as a collective of women here, as a sisterhood, in this tribe, we are agreeing and giving each other permission to go into these places and embody the sensual energy, to embody the sexual energy. It's like without shame, just like real full expression. So let's look at let's look at an image of, oops. Okay, minimize that. I'll do a little screen share. Let me pull this up. It always takes me a minute to get this. All right. I think you should be able to see her now. So this image is the first image that you see in your workbook for this part of the journey. And I'm really curious what you notice about this image and what you feel. And what I'm going to ask is I'm going to open up the chat. And if there are any words that come to you, anything that you notice or see in her that you want to express, so you can go ahead and write that into the chat. So just taking a moment and like really taking her in, and notice what comes up for you when you look at this image. Does it invite you in? Do you feel like, what do you feel? And what do you notice specifically about why I might have chose this image over something else? All right, I'm gonna stop the share just so I can get into the chat. So I don't know how to do both at the same time. All right. So Natalia says freedom, and Lulu says power. Jessica says freedom also. Nicholas says openness. Faye says ease. Natalia says serenity. Sumi says confidence. Morgan says elegance. And Lulu says, and a little discomfort. And then Tiffany says she feels so good in her body. And Sarah says sensuality. Lulu, I'm wondering if you mean discomfort, like it brings up a little discomfort for you, or you think
Yeah, it brings up a little discomfort in me because I put myself there and I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
So you compare in some way, and that it's that you don't feel that free, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't feel that free. Almost everything you said about leadership and sensuality just like touched all those buttons. I was like, yep, turned all that off.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that can happen, I'm going to put you back on mute for the moment, that can happen as we go through this is that there can be some level of like being, of either comparing or feeling like, ooh, like it could bring up some discomfort, or just point out places where you're like, oh yeah, like that, I'm not living in that. And the way that what happens in our, so in our culture, those images, like I think of like Victoria's Secret, like catalogs and like fashion shows and all that kind of thing as being the epitome of this thing that's held up, where we have some discomfort perhaps because we compare ourselves to like, oh, this woman has like the perfect body, or she's the ideal for the male gaze, and we're always comparing ourselves to that. And what I'm intending here is for us to it's not about that, what it looks like, it's about what it feels like, which is why I chose her. I'm just going to pull her up for one more second for a moment to, where'd you go? Just the reason that I chose her is that she is in her own experience. That she is not going, hey guys, I'm so sexy, look at me, She is in the experience of what it feels like to be in her body. That's what I see, and why I chose her, is that it's like she's running her fingers through her hair, and she's just like, it just feels to me like she's going, wow, it feels really good inside here. Like it feels really good to have a woman's body, and I'm just enjoying my woman's body right now. And that, for me, is a hint to what this journey is about. So we've been taught by our culture that it's this more external thing, that like, and we're going to talk about Aphrodite specifically as one of these goddesses in a moment. But it's like that, she's so seductive. She's the goddess of love and beauty, and everyone wants her. And we're taught that that has something to do primarily with just like her physical appearance. And the sensual goddess, what she's teaching us is it's about our inner experience. That when we are feeling connected to our pleasure, that's when we magnetize. And so this is an inner journey into what something feels like inside you, if that makes sense. The sensual goddess is all about you being in the moment, your sensation, your aliveness, your pleasure, what it feels like to touch your own body, your own breasts, your own thighs. And if you turn the page, I speak here about this archetype. And just to go over this really quickly, So it's, you know, this is very connected to our sexuality, but beyond that, it's, you know, she's the sensual goddess, not the sexual goddess. It is about being in our senses, and she is awakened within us, this grand archetype, anytime we are alive in our senses, alive to the sensation of touch, to smell. The visual, yes, but even more primally are like the taste, the smell, the touch, that these things that bring us into the moment so that we're so alive. We are like a puppy dog or a little baby, you know, when they come into a space, how magnetic they are. It's like everyone wants to go towards the puppy or the baby because that being is so present and alive. And it's actually something that's unfamiliar to us, because most of the time in our culture, most of us are disembodied. We're projecting to the future, or we're thinking about the past. We're in our head. We're strategizing. And we're completely disconnected to what is actually occurring in the moment. And so to connect to the sensual goddess is a deep spiritual awakening. It is an awakening to the now, to the presence. And in Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, there's a little section in there where he says, you know, women actually more naturally have a connection to that ability to be in the present, in the now, because it is more part of the feminine nature. However, in our culture, we tend to cut it and disconnect to it. But the feminine, the sensual goddess, is calling us into everything that brings us into the here and now 100%. And when we're in that space, we magnetize. When we're in our pleasure, when we're in our yes, she's all about the yes to your pleasure, discovering what your pleasure is, what your desire is. Sometimes we don't even know what brings us pleasure or what we desire anymore, because no one's been asking us. We've been disconnected to that. We've been told it's not valuable, it's not important. And these things happen when we're a little girl, when we're a child. You know, we learn like, oh, what's valuable, what's rewarded, what do I, and then and I'll talk in a moment about like all the confusing signals we get around our sensuality and sexuality as we're, you know, a little girl growing up. And but when we awaken this archetype within us, we become incredibly present in the moment, connected to our joy, connected to pleasure, desire. And it's that feeling of making love to life, you know? And that's really, I would say specifically, like Aphrodite is that is the essence of who she is I just move through life making love to everything. And what is making love? It's like it's incredible presence and appreciation for what is in front of you, and engagement with it, you know? So it's like, you know, it's like you stroke your lover's cheek, or like that feeling of such presence, like bringing that to everything that you do, to every moment, and feeling how then life is making love back to you. And that this is one of our superpowers. This is part of our ability to be a leader. And, you know, one of the women that I work with privately, who's a COO for an organization, was sharing with me recently in one of our sessions. She's like, we were in the midst of our sensual goddess time, and she was like, it's incredible what's happening in my meetings. You know, I go into the boardroom and like everything's like happening really easily, and like didn't expect that, but it emanates out in that way, so that instead of life being a fight, right? That's actually the metaphor that we're sort of given for what life is, you know? It's like, it's got to go into the battle, get into the fray, into the fight, like that. We have this narrative and this perception about life that's that. And she's going, hey, wait, maybe it's all about making love to everything all the time. Maybe that's the grand narrative, you know, is that I'm here to make love to life, and life wants to make love to me. And I kind of feel like that was what's happening with the gold, you know, necklace in my pussy. It was like, life just wants to make love to you, girl. Like, trust it. That's what magic is. That's where things happen that, don't quite make sense and don't add up like 1 + 1 = 2. So that's what awakens when we move into the sensual goddess. And this is our freaking superpower that's been like yanked away from us and shamed away from us and like stomped on. And now it's like some of the most like feminist thing that we can do is actually to reclaim it, but really define it from an empowered women's perspective, to really define it from this space of, oh, I'm not taking on like the male gaze version of this or the manipulative version of this. This is a sacred, very authentic and innocent expression of myself, and just taking that back without apology. So how do you know you need more sensual goddess in your life? So I always have a few things that I put here as like some of the markers. If you're feeling tired, worn out, uninspired, feeling unattractive, disconnected to your body, your beauty, low sex drive, you could be experiencing anger and frustration, just experiencing, your life is all work and no play. If you're not in a relationship, but you're desiring to manifest that, it's a good time to call upon her. Or, you can be in a relationship that's lost some of its spark. That happens to all of us. And, bringing her in will certainly help to re-engage that energy in the relationship. If you're wanting to feel more just in general juicy, creative, alive, and if you're again, along with like feeling unattractive, you're not enjoying dressing yourself, it's like there's no creativity happening. It's kind of like when you're missing the sensual goddess, it's like you're in a black and white TV show. It's like the color kind of went out of the picture. It's sort of like the color's been drained. Everything just feels like it's functional. And literally, if you live in that too long, you will not want to be alive. Like, it will make you want to just, not to be dramatic here, but like end it all, because this is what makes life worth living. This is the color. This is the juice. It's like, why are we doing wait, let's take it all back. Wait, why are we doing all of this? Why? Like, why do we need to accomplish all? Like, why? Oh, so I can enjoy my life. And I can actually enjoy it right now? Yes, you can. Yeah, right now, in this moment. That's what she's whispering in our ear. Is she's saying, it's right here. It's right here. Just come into the now, come into your body, and you are able to have like the zest of life, like this feeling of creativity, this feeling of aliveness, this feeling of pleasure and joy again. And, it's not surprising then that it's this that creates babies. Like, this is where babies come from. This is what creates new life, because it's like a celebration of what it means to be in a human body and how awesome it is. Like, let's propagate that. Let's make more. That's what comes out of this, right? But when we don't have this, like, literally, it's just like, I just want to slit my wrist. Like, really, like, it's like, why? Like, there's a feeling of like life is not worth living. So this is the juice of life. And that's kind of why we start with this. With many reasons why we start with this, but it's one of them. It's like, this is the fuel. This is what fills our tank. This is what kind of needs to precede anything else. So that we have the joy, the energy, the creativity, the oomph, the life force, the vitality to bring to it. So some physical signs are dehydration, because she's wet. The sensual goddesses are all associated with bodies of water. This is water energy, and their sexual energy is water energy. So she's wetness, and so yeah, like tightness, dehydration, tense and being overly worked out and muscular and kind of masculine, experiencing frequent headaches, neck aches, back aches, obviously vaginal dryness and stiffness, not enjoying sex, not feeling interested in sex. These are all some of the like physical signs, but basically it's contraction, tension, tightness, dryness. When she comes in, like I said, it's like the grease in the wheel, it's lubrication, it's the juice. And yeah, that's what I'm going to say. So the sensual goddesses that we're going to spend some time with are Aphrodite this week, next week Oshun, and then the following week Lakshmi. So let's spend some time with Aphrodite right now. Um, okay. I'm just seeing if there's anything I'm missing on the chat. A few little things. Okay. So, I think I'm going to do screen share so we can look at some images of Aphrodite and learn about her. Oh, let's try and do that. Okay. Start share. Okay, so here she is. So just as when you were looking at the other image before, just really take this in. What do you notice? What do you feel looking at her? So she is the Greek goddess of sensuality, erotic eros, erotic love, and beauty. She also governs artistic creativity, all the arts, anything that is beautiful. Anything that has to do with love, romance, and beauty, and sensuality. And Venus, of course, is her Roman counterpart. And here's a very famous Birth of Venus image. And yeah, if there's anything you want to express that you're noticing or you're feeling looking at these images, go ahead and write them in the chat, and we'll look at the chat in a moment. So here's another classic image. Oh, there's that one again. Oh, this is one of my all-time favorites. I don't know if you're like able to see the whole thing because it looks like some of your images are maybe overlapping, but she's just spread out here in this shell. I love this image. I think that's, yeah. So I'm going to bring us back so we can look at the chat. All right, it's going on in the chat over here. She is so curvy, says Faye. So much grace, Lulu. Jessica says expansive, open, safe. Blanca says flowy. Magnetism, yes, Lulu. Erotic, Blanca. Safe, unashamed. Yeah. Interesting. Pure. Yeah, interesting, right? So in these images, it's like she's obviously the focal point, but you'll notice that everything is directed, like everyone's gaze, like everything is directed towards her. And at the same time, in all of those images, her gaze and her focus, it seems to be in her inner experience, just like I was saying about the other image of the woman, that it's like there's no sense in these images that she's doing something like, hey everybody, look at me, like I want to get attention here. It's like she's just being, there's a sense that you get from that where she's just being herself, unashamed, as someone had put here. That like, this is who I am, and I'm not going to cover it up, I'm not going to be ashamed about it, and I'm going to just really enjoy it for my own. There's a sense that whatever's going on for her has to do with her own experience, for her own joy, for her own pleasure, for her own being. There's no energy of trying to get something or to go somewhere or do something or manipulate something. It's like she's just purely being herself. And from there, that as we were saying before about like puppies and babies, that kind of thing, that magnetizes. It's like this, and that someone said they're innocent. It's like, yes, it's an erotic innocence. You know, it's like there's no, there's no manipulation. There's no intent for a result that's there, and that's where the innocence is. It's pure being. And I love that Lulu also had put in there, safe. Right. And that's one of the things that's interesting. Sometimes when I share these images with women, there's a sense of like, wow, she's kind of like vulnerable. because it's just like she's so soft, she's naked, and if something wanted to harm her in some way, it's almost like, wow, like she's looked unprotected. Yet at the same time, there's a power that you see, and there's a sense of safety. There's a sense of that nothing is really going to be able to mess with her. Like people around her wouldn't let it happen, and that somehow she wouldn't let that happen either. Like that she's in her power. And there's a sense that she just feels safe. Like, and that's a really big issue in some ways at this time with some of the conversations that are happening politically in our culture at large around how, because of this lack of safety in some way, and like how that affects us in relationship to our ability to really connect to Aphrodite. And so yes, that's there. We live in a culture that isn't necessarily safe all the time. And so it's partly our discernment to know when to allow ourselves to fully go into our Aphrodite. And we also have a warrior goddess that is there, and as we feel that our warrior goddess, and, as we go through the course, you'll have that experience. As you feel like she is really strong and able to hold space, then your Aphrodite will feel more safe to really be soft and seen, if that makes sense. Like that you've sort of developed both aspects of these. Authentic without agenda, exactly, Jessica. Very soft but strong. Yes, expensive, Natalia. Yeah, exactly, right? So she's got this incredible softness, but you just get this feeling that she's so strong that, oh, I didn't see any private messages, Natalia. And yeah, so Aphrodite, just to tell you a little bit more about her story, she's one of the better known of the Greek goddesses. So we had Hestia last week, and she's one that you maybe have never heard of, like because her, she's kind of, her value has been kind of pushed, misunderstood, and sort of pushed down. Aphrodite has kind of kept her popularity, I would say. Like people kind of have some sense of like Venus, Aphrodite, and almost taking on, like when women think of goddess, that they may even like think of her as one of the first images that would pop into their mind, or when you think of feminine. And so we have, most likely, some kind of a superficial notion of what she is. And this week is really your opportunity to go deeper into really starting to have a personal connection with her, starting to understand how she expresses through you individually, that she's not this goddess that's out there, but that she's an aspect of yourself that wants to move through you and communicate with you and express through you. And I'll tell you a little bit about her story, so you know a little bit more about her. So her birth is really interesting. There were the Titans, which were the kind of the gods or the beings that predated the Olympians, which is like Zeus on Mount Olympus. And Kronos, let me just make sure I get this right. Kronos and Uranus. So the father is Uranus, and Kronos is his son. And the son, in this kind of like Oedipus sort of thing, he cuts his father's penis off. He cuts off his genitals. And it's like, no, it's my time. So it's like this raw, like violent kind of masculine energy where he just like cuts off his genitals and throws them into the ocean. And so it's Uranus's dismembered genitals and combining with the mother ocean herself that produces Aphrodite. It's kind of like the foam of the ocean. And out of this foam and out of this, the union of his semen and her oceanic feminine, Aphrodite, arises. So it's like literally she's a daughter of the ocean. She's a daughter of the water. She is this like pure, very elemental expression of the feminine is her mother. And I find it very interesting that it's like her father, it's just sort of like this dismembered penis. It's like he had no initiative in like making her. Does that make sense? It's like, you know, he didn't go and like I'm gonna go fuck somebody and have sex and make a baby. It was like, no, it was just this sort of almost like anonymous cock, like, you know, is her father. And so there's something, you know, very pure, very elemental about her. And I think it's that there's some value in the fact that in her story that there was no like real masculine intent that allows her to just be this really pure feminine expression. And so she rises up out of the ocean fully formed. She's never a little girl. I mean, and of course, I think every little girl has Aphrodite in her, but in her mythology, she is just, and so when we see those images, it's like she's always surrounded by water. She's rising up like on a shell, and there's all these flowers around. That's, you know, Aphrodite rising out of the ocean. Like that's her conception. That's her birth, or sorry, her birth. And immediately she's taken to Mount Olympus, and she's recognized as the goddess of love and beauty and Eros. And she's taken to Mount Olympus, and, you know, Zeus is the big head honcho there. And there's a few variations on the story, but in some versions they say Zeus like chose a husband for her. And then in other versions, and I like these better, of course, she chooses her husband. And out of all of the gods, she chooses Hephaestus, who's a god that you've probably most likely never heard of. And, you know, he's not like flashy like Mars or Ares, you know, the god of war, or Poseidon, the god of the ocean, and those are both lovers of her at some point, but that's not who she chooses as a husband. Hephaestus is the god of the forge, and that means that he's like the metalsmith for the gods. And so he's kind of like, you know, in this dark basementy place, like in front of this like roaring fire. He's like a blue collar god, you know. I kind of picture him with those like kind of sleeves rolled up and like maybe some like, you know, big biceps and like tattoos on him, and he's like banging things under the forge. And he's also the lame god, because they say that, you know, he had like a bit of a limp. And so this is who Aphrodite, Aphrodite is the goddess of love, of Eros, of beauty. She's irresistible. Like everybody wants her. It's like she shows up and everyone's like, you know, magnetized and drawn to her. And she's like, I want this guy. And one thing that I will point out that is valuable to know is that metalsmithing was not like, even though I kind of say he's like the blue collar god because he's like working with his hands and, you know, kind of dirty and all this, was incredibly valued at that time. You know, the ability to have weapons and money and all these things that were made from metal were kind of magical things. Like this was something that came, you know, these precious metals that came out of Mama Earth and that were able to be used in this way in their society and culture were very, very valued. So it's not like he wasn't important. He was definitely very, very important. And he actually made like the magical weapons for all of the gods. And in fact, he makes something for Aphrodite. He gifts her with a golden girdle. And this girdle makes her irresistible to men. So, or to anyone that she would desire. Now, that's kind of already her essence. Like that's the essence of Aphrodite, is like she is like everybody desires her and she's so magnetic. However, just in case there was ever anyone that she desired that didn't want her back, she has this golden girdle that will make her irresistible. And a few things that are interesting about this. One is that her husband gives her a girdle to make her irresistible to anyone that she wants. So in that, there is an acknowledgement that he's basically saying, like, I see that your essence is to make love. You know, your essence is freedom also. And I want to celebrate that in you and like encourage the essence of who you are. Like that's a real act of love. Now, I am in no way suggesting that this is necessarily the ideal relationship. I mean, for some people, it is. They have open partnerships and this kind of thing. But in this situation, for the essence of who she is as this pure, erotic, in the now moment, sensual being, this is an act of love and appreciation on his part and support. There are a lot of stories, though, that he would get jealous too, you know, and she had many lovers. Now, of all the Greek and Roman goddesses, she was the only one who had the freedom to have many lovers. In all of the goddesses are either married and have one partner, or they're virgins. Many of them are virgins. And she's the only one that has freedom to make love with whoever she desires, and has many, many lovers, gods and mortals. And there are a lot of stories around this. And the thing about the golden girdle that's really interesting is that it's such a great metaphor. So one of the things I want for you to think about and incorporate into your practice when you're doing the Shakti breathing and you're starting to move that into a kind of sensual dance and moving energy in the body, is to really feel into activating this girdle. Like, now a girdle, just so we all know, because sometimes people ask me this, because this is like an old-fashioned kind of thing, is a girdle is like this kind of like almost like underwear, is like this piece of undergarment that women used to wear to kind of like hold things in, and kind of like hold in the belly. And sometimes you could like attach, I think, like your silk stockings to them and this kind of thing. But it's like this piece of undergarment that would go right around the abdominal area and over the like sex organ. So it's like right over the womb in many ways. So it's like, by having this golden girdle that makes her irresistible, it's kind of like a metaphor for understanding that when we activate that part of our body, so it's like bringing, like when we're drawing that Shakti into our pelvis and then we're starting to move it around, I often experience and see it as a golden kind of light, golden liquid light. And you might see it in a different color, or you might experience it a little bit differently, but a lot of women can kind of relate to that, and that's something that I experience a lot. So it's almost like when you're activating this part of your body with the Shakti, when you're bringing that life force energy, when you're kind of activating that golden light in that part of your body, that you become irresistible. And it's just kind of a great metaphor for just really activating that part of the body and her relationship to Aphrodite, or the relationship between that part of the body and Aphrodite. Another interesting tidbit about Aphrodite is that she would go to a sacred waters every springtime and bathe in these waters, and they would say that it would actually make her like a virgin again. What I kind of interpret that to mean is, it's not so much about this like idea of purity, of like cleansing away all that dirty sex that she had or something, but it's that she is making herself, like kind of allowing herself to feel everything as new, right? You know that Madonna song, she's like a virgin, like the very first time, that in that sense that she's able to bring to her continued, like all the experiences that she has, she's still able to connect to this experience of like, it's the first time. And that's what it means to be like really in the moment, really alive, like really making love. And so I take that to mean it's like she has this ability to just really continue to access this newness, this like first time feeling. And you can speak about that as like to her lovers, but it's just to everything, like everything in your life. If you can imagine being able to bring like that energy of the first time, right? Like that presence, that aliveness. Natalia says she wrote a poem dedicated to her stepdad about Hephaestus. They are very similar, working with hands. kind of guy. Wonderful. I love, like, he's so rare. No one ever knows him. So I love that you know him. Awesome. Okay. So in your playbook, there are a couple pages here that says, how to bring Aphrodite into your everyday life. And I want to encourage you to go through and take some time with these and see which ones feel right for you that you want to implement, because essentially this next week is your week to embody Aphrodite. So you're going to feel into all the ways you personally can connect to her. And I'm just going to pull out a couple of these. One is just slow down. So just when you feel yourself speeding, just bringing yourself into a more slow space. So walking more slowly, talking more slowly, whatever it is that you're doing, just slowing it down. Smelling things. Smell your food before you put it in your mouth. Smell your boyfriend's armpits. Smell your own armpits. Smell the bark on a tree. Just like smelling things. That's such a primal sense. So just that really will bring you into the moment. Beautifying your home, adorning yourself, pampering yourself. Have some fun ones about, not wearing, maybe don't wear underwear, or if you're doing something like, you're having to be at home doing some computer work, you could like put on a pair of pretty silk panties and like put on some fun music and be naked and like do your work that way, or just like bringing in a bit of playfulness. And what I'd like to do now is some hands-on stuff to get connected to her. And then we'll go back to kind of going through some of your homework assignments. So did everybody remember to bring some fruit and some chocolate? Yeah? Great. And Aphrodite is so like, she's like, everything being beautiful is really important to her. So it's like, even placing this out, it was like putting the strawberries and little rose petals and like placing the chocolate. It's just like when you're going into Aphrodite mode, you're just like aware of the aesthetics, the beauty that is going to come from everything. I have a little candle to light here. So what we're going to do, so getting your like fruit and chocolate ready, but before we go into that, I want to do a little physical practice with us. So go ahead and bring yourself into a comfortable seated position and close your eyes. And I want you to feel really comfy, because she wants everything to look beautiful and she wants to feel really good in the moment. So just really paying attention to how you're sitting, where you are. Just like, do you feel good in your body? And dropping your awareness into the pelvis and into the thighs and your seat, your sexual organs. And dropping that cord just as we did at the top of the call. And as you drop that cord, this time I want you just to do a little bit of, it's almost like you're siphoning that energy, but you can do a little bit of like, kind of like a Kegel squeezing. And I don't want you to think too much about like the exercise of a Kegel, if you're familiar with that, as much as I would love for you to just feel into like, you're just almost like giving yourself a little squeeze to be like, am I awake down here? Kind of a little pumping and a little squeezing and just a little like, like, are my muscles and am I alive and awake in this area? And while you're playing with that, also just doing some deep breathing into any sensation you're having and just noticing if there's any slight movement or anything that your body wants to do. And if you're not feeling anything, just breathe into that and it's okay also. It's like we're just starting to really wake her up. And again, keeping the eyes closed and just starting to feel into the essence of Aphrodite. And perhaps sending out a little silent prayer of just really kind of an invitation to her. Like, Aphrodite, come and show me what you got. Let me know. What do you want to say to me? I'm ready. I'm ready to hear you. Notice if there's any part of your body that you feel particularly connecting to her when you feel into her. And what I'd like for you to do right now is take your hands and you can place one of them over the heart area, and you can just sort of place it flat against the chest, and then place one hand down near your crotch and your sexual organs in just a really comfortable way, just placing the hand there and taking a breath in through the heart and sending energy from the heart down towards the other hand into towards your sexual sensual center, and then breathing in through that area. And then the next exhale, sending energy from that area up towards the heart. So we're harmonizing the heart and the sexual organs right now. So just back and forth, sending energy. And I want you to notice if you can start to feel it's almost like there's a nectar that's brewing in the body, a golden elixir of light that's circulating back and forth. And you can maybe even feel your hands kind of warm up a little bit, holding that energy. And then after your next exhalation, I invite you to bring your hands together and just lightly rub them in a palm to palm. And then bringing your hands up over your head, you're going to very slowly and gently begin to allow your hands, your palms, to come down towards the top of your head. And letting the hands lightly make contact with the top of your head, and just allowing your hands to send this combination of heart and eros love into your head. And you can almost imagine like you're painting your body with this golden paint, this elixir that we were brewing down there. It's now like it's on your hands. You can paint it onto your body, and bringing your hands across the top of your head to your forehead. And then slowly and gently rubbing and feeling how good it is to have a forehead. Just rubbing your forehead gently, and then bringing your hands along your cheeks, maybe around the eyebrows. Across your nose, and maybe around your lips, ever so gently with like a feather-like touch. And then down to the neck and the throat. Across the top of the chest, the sternum. Down to the breasts. And we all have our eyes closed. So just with your eyes closed, just feeling your breasts. Imagine you're painting them this golden love light. Feel how good it is to have breasts. And bringing your hands along the rib cage, across the belly, and taking a moment to just really hold the belly. Painting your belly gold. Sex organs. Around the hips. Feeling your low back, your butt. Feeling how beautiful your curves are. This innocent, in the moment experience of what your human form and your human flesh feels like. And bringing the hands back across the thighs, the inner thighs, the tops of the thighs, around the backs of the knees, front of the knees. Again, everyone is in their own little bubble with their eyes closed, just bringing your hands down along your calves, all the way down to the feet, painting them this beautiful love light up along the backs of the calves, feather light touch, seeing your whole body glowing with this love light, this erotic and heart light. Back up the thighs, and just taking a moment to feel anywhere that needs a little more of that golden paint. Maybe taking a moment to hug yourself, placing your arms around, making sure you're painting up and down the arms, across the breasts. Just taking a moment to just experience and feel the lusciousness and the deliciousness of your body. And then bringing your hands back to the heart. And then taking one hand, placing it on the heart, one over the yoni or the sexual organs. Just taking in a few deep breaths. Inviting in Aphrodite's presence. Lingering here for a moment. And then when you are ready, slowly with presence, getting your strawberries or your fruit, your chocolate. So this is a practice you can do on your own at home. This is a practice that brings you back into your body. It's a practice of self-love, of really feeling your own flesh as beautiful, really helping you to connect to that true, gentle, erotic, innocent love light that is yours, that is your birthright. And, you know, every little girl, I say, you know, has that connection to Aphrodite. It's so pure, it's so real. And like in the sense of, you know, twirling in a skirt, like feeling the sunlight, dancing. And for each of us, there was a moment in time where we were disconnected from her. And something that I would love for you to feel into and journal about this week is remembering moments when you did feel her, especially as a child, and also feeling into and remembering when the moments came that had you shut down and disconnect and leave the body and leave that ability to be so present and so alive in the senses. You know, it's like a little girl when she's eating something or she's playing and she's just so there. And for many of us, there were experiences that happened that let us know that maybe it's not safe, or maybe unwanted experiences were magnetized or attracted in at that time, or it was just not rewarded, it wasn't okay, and other things were, you know, emphasis was put on. But just, you know, part of your journaling this week and in the exploration will just be in really when did I feel her very innately, and when did I notice it got shut down. And don't spend too much mental energy on that, but just be feeling into that, exploring with that. And then also in moments doing this practice for yourself of just tuning in, feeling that energy, bringing it to just really the preciousness of who you are, feeling and experiencing the preciousness of your form and of your soul. And then now we're going to do a little play with our senses. So how every woman becomes Aphrodite when she's connected to her pleasure, when she's awakened in her senses. And our culture has told us that we become Aphrodite because a man, you know, says that we are the ideal or we match up to something. And she reminds us, no, it's an inner experience that we connect to through our senses. So your experience of the next week and the next few weeks with sensual goddesses will be to really find ways to connect to your senses. So smell, taste, touch, and using essential oils also. So the practice that we just did, you could also use like a little beautiful rose oil or any kind of delicious essential oil that really turns you on. And just imagine like bringing that into the experience too as another added layer. And just keep connecting so you have this sense of touch and you have the sense of smell. And now we're going to play with sensual eating. And so we're going to do this together, and I really encourage you to experiment doing this on your own and perhaps with a partner if that feels aligned for you in the next week. So what I'd like you to do is take a piece of fruit that you brought, so either like a berry, something small, or a piece of cut fruit if you have it, and just begin to take that in your hands. And I'm going to take you step by step through the process of really, just as Aphrodite is able to bring that energy of the virgin, of the first time to something, we're going to bring that energy to this eating of this fruit. And when I spoke before about making love to life, this is it. This is it. Like, there's opportunities for us to come in more deeply into our senses, more deeply into the moment, and to make love with life all of the time. Yet we bypass them because we're in the world of function. I eat because it's dinner time, or I'm watching TV, or I'm in a conversation, and it's like the act of eating could be this incredible lovemaking experience. So taking this piece of fruit, and we're going to focus first on the sense of sight, of the visual. And I want you to imagine like you are an alien from outer space that's never seen. So whatever it is that you've got, you've probably eaten them a million times before in your life. So I'm going to use a strawberry because that's what I have. So imagining that this strawberry is something you've never seen before, and you're going to understand it, experience what it is. So noticing all these things that you may not normally notice when you're in that sort of objects of use functionality place. So noticing perhaps the variation in color that's there, maybe noticing where light reflects off of it and it could get a sheen to it. Noticing if it has interesting textures or seeds or pockets. Just really visually taking in the shape, the texture, the light, the color. Almost as if you were going to paint it. Because this piece of fruit is absolutely unique. Never been one exactly like it before. And of course, we could do this for a really long time, but once for the moment you've taken in the visual, you can go ahead and close your eyes. And now we get to go into that more inner space because the visual field is so dominant. With the eyes closed, we're going to move into touch. So, experiencing the temperature compared to your fingers. Experiencing the texture. Is it rough? Is it soft? Is it fuzzy? Is it slick? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it warm? Is it cool? What does the shape feel like under your fingers? Can you make out the uniqueness of the shape through touch and feel? Can you, not just you touch it, but can it touch you? What happens if you run it across your hand? I find the wrist such a sensitive place. What happens if you let it touch you across the wrist? Maybe it wants to touch your cheek. Or just very gently rub across your lip, tempting you. Really letting yourself fully immerse yourself in the experience of touch. And then, once you've gotten your full of the touch sense, we're going to move to smell. So bringing it up under the nose. Notice how your mouth might start to water in anticipation. Can you, like a wine connoisseur, really take in the individual notes, the uniqueness of the smell? How tart, how sweet, how acid, how fresh. And when you've gotten your fill of smell, we're going to hold it out in front of us. You can open your eyes and look at it once more. And then we're going to move towards eating. But I want you to really stay with me here. So you're going to very slowly bring it towards your lips. And notice how the mouth automatically opens to receive it. And then I want you to pause right there between the teeth. There's a little tease, a little pause, and then you can take your first bite. Closing the eyes, going into the inner space, feeling the juice, the explosion of flavor. And don't swallow yet. Chewing, noticing how your mouth expertly moves it around, feeling the change in the texture as you chew. And eventually the texture will shift, become very liquid, and the flavor will dissipate. And then when you're ready, you can swallow that first bite down. And just with your eyes closed, taking a moment to really revel in the feeling, the experience of being one bite more full, feeling what happened inside your body from ingesting, from making love to this piece of fruit, from allowing yourself to merge your being with that alive being. That was an act of making love, becoming one with something. And with the eyes closed, I would love for you to either take another bite and play with the fruit, with the sensation of smell and touch and taste. Or if you've got chocolate, you can play with the chocolate. Whichever your pussy, whatever she wants, whatever is your desire. And then the same, the smelling. And for now, just imagine you're blindfolded. We're going to take the visual away for the moment and go to the more primal senses. So really the touching, the smelling. You can even kind of tease yourself with it. Eventually taking a first bite, but really no rushing here. Really taking time. And just really letting yourself like go into the eros, into the erotic experience of eating. But it's erotic innocence. It's innocent. There's no end goal here. There's no seduction. It's just merging with, making love with this chocolate or this fruit. Discovering it, devouring it, letting it affect you. And wow, we're just over time a little bit. The sensual goddess does not like to rush, and there's so much more I want to do with you, and I'm gonna give you some homework. One thing I want to show you that is one of my favorite things ever that I think you all should have if you don't have one, is this little thing here, which is a little mini fondue pot situation where I just use it for chocolate. And then you can take your fruit and you can dip it in the chocolate. And it's like the most decadent, joyful experience ever. And you can put all sorts of different things in there. We've all had chocolate fondue, but to have a little pot that you can do that with at home, I suggest doing that with a lover, a friend. And by the way, our sensuality is something that we tend to put all the pressure on the man in our life, if there is one. And if there's not one, then it's like this absence. Women, we're very sensual beings. So I suggest also really giving permission for sensual play with other women. So I know there's a few of you that actually all live in the same town or are friends, so you could like get together and feed each other, blindfold yourselves. Faye says, I'm so turned on right now. Yeah, Emily girl, I feel you on that. Yes. So I can remember years ago in a private session doing this sensual eating with one of my clients in New York in person. And I had the chocolate, the strawberries, the whole thing, and blindfolded her, fed her, and she was like, is it like weird that she's like, I feel drunk and I feel turned on right now. She's like, I feel a little embarrassed. I was like, no, it's fine. It's good because it's like there's opportunities for this part of ourselves to be awake all of the time, like so much more of the time than we give ourselves permission. And it's natural that like this is a form of making love. This is a form of connecting to our eros. Flower petals. I recommend just having lots of flowers around you this week. And I'm forever like peeling petals and decorating with them, but like it feels so good to like rub on your skin. It's so soft. So you could get together with a girlfriend and be like, hey, let's have a little party, like come over to my place and, feed each other chocolate and fruit and, rub each other down with rose petals. And just like, I guess I just want to give you permission to experiment with your sensuality with female friends in a way this is not about sex. This is not about romance. It's just about women are sensual beings and we need to have space to do this. And it's great. Like do it on your own. Absolutely. But I also welcome in sharing it. So it could be with a romantic partner. It could also just be with someone who's a good friend. I do this kind of thing with my girlfriends all the time, and I just think there's a lot of space for us to like really bring that sensuality, because it's really like it's nutrition. It's like food for us, to bring that into our friendships. Raspberries, yeah. I had raspberries last night, and then today I ate them all, and I was like, I was like, oh shoot, I don't have them for tonight. But they were so good. I feel like this is a good raspberry time right now. Okay, so ladies, for your homework, your play work, or your home play, there we go. Embodying Aphrodite in your everyday. So just write down, maybe after class tonight or sometime tomorrow, 3 things that you're going to implement this week. You can read through those suggestions and prompts I have there, but 3 ways you're going to bring Aphrodite into your life. And then there's a weekly pleasure journal. So I actually need to kind of redo the pages here, but there's a pleasure list. So I recommend doing the pleasure list first, which is on the following page, where you're going to write out things that bring you pleasure. So like I said, we get disconnected, we forget. No one asks us, like, what do you desire? What brings you pleasure? So you're going to really get connected. Maybe do some Shakti breathing or do the practice that we just did with the hands on the body. And then just like, what brings me pleasure? And feel into, bubble baths, walks in the park, flowers, chocolate, whatever those things are, and make a list so that you have like a pleasure menu, all these things that bring you pleasure. And then over the week, you're going to make sure to do one of them every day. So to schedule in a moment for pleasure. So what we're doing here is we're prioritizing your pleasure, because this is the thing that in our very mental logical space, we don't prioritize, because that comes last after we've gotten everything checked off our list. And guess what? You're never, ever, ever going to get everything checked off your list. It never happens. And so we need to actually prioritize pleasure and put that on our list and bump it up to get that. This is what gives us the fuel. This is what gives us the energy to do everything else. This is what gives the creativity and the lusciousness and the magnetism to everything that we do. So make time for pleasure breaks. So even when you've got a lot going on, it's like schedule in the bubble bath, schedule in just some time to make a little plate with raspberries and chocolate and, a beautiful silly magazine or something, and like lay on your bed and, do that. Or, if there's somewhere at the office that you can find a little private space to do something that brings you pleasure. So make your pleasure list, and then you have a weekly pleasure journal. So for 7 days, every single day, you're going to have to write down and acknowledge like if you did your pleasure activity. And there's a little spot for a gold star. You can just sort of give yourself a little star when you do it. So we're kind of rewiring here that this is something that you get rewarded for, because when we were little, pleasure didn't become a priority because we had to do all the important stuff, and we got gold stars for that. But here we're going to acknowledge and be like, yes, I did my pleasure thing. And then there's the bonus weekly pleasure extravaganza. So one completely indulgent, over the top, big pleasure thing. So it's a little pleasure thing every day, and then one biggie for the week. And then there's some journaling questions just about how it felt. What did you experience by doing that much pleasure in your week? So yeah, so we'll leave it there. That's your homework. So your homework is pleasure list, pleasure journaling. You're going to give yourself 3 ways that you're going to bring Aphrodite into your week. And then I suggest you're going to continue doing your morning practice. Bring Aphrodite energy into your Shakti breathing. And you can also kind of bring your hands over your head. And over the whole body, and just really practice like feeling your body, connecting to your body in this way. I would love, tonight we didn't have a lot of time for interactivity, and I just would love to hear voices. So would anyone like to share anything, especially someone who we haven't heard from on the call yet? Tiffany, I'm gonna just come to you and unmute you. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. This is great. Thank you.
How do you feel connecting to Aphrodite? Is this something that you feel like you're excited to do this week?
Yes, I definitely need this. Like all the symptoms that you described of, overworked and tense and things are just work, work, work and no fun. I've been experiencing a lot of that. And so I very much welcome the opportunity to give myself gold stars for making this a priority.
Yay. Awesome. And I want to say also, you are going to get your buddy assignments tomorrow. Sometimes the buddies just come like so immediately, it's so clear. And with this group, I've been kind of feeling out who are going to be, I think, the best buddies. So you're going to get those tomorrow. And one of your homework assignments too will be to get in touch with your buddy and share what your Aphrodite things are. So you kind of have someone that's keeping you accountable a little bit to, like I said, I'm going to do these things, and just to be able to share with somebody who's also in the process what you're going to do and hear what they're going to do. So you'll get that tomorrow in your email inbox. All right, I'm going to put you back on mute for the moment. And then I think Emily says she wants to share. We haven't heard from Emily yet. So Emily, hi. Ooh, I can't hear you. Wait, are you muted? Hold on. Are you muted on your end? Because I think I unmuted you. No? Let me see. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you're unmuted from my side, Emily.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, yeah, there you are. Just speak up. There you are.
Okay, good.
Hi.
Hi.
So is there anything particular you want to share?
I was just going to say that my boyfriend and I hit a real lull in our relationship about 2 months ago, and there just was no spark anymore. And we used to have an amazing sex life, and then there just was no desire from either of us. And neither of us were turned on. We didn't want to have sex, so we just weren't enjoying it. Just something was off and we couldn't figure it out. So we ended up deciding to not live together anymore because we needed some space to kind of rekindle things. So for the last 2 months, we've been living separately and we've kind of just been doing our own things. But since I started this course and since I've been doing the Shakti breathing, I literally have been doing this stuff every time I do it before I start undulating. And it's just been so sensual, and it's been bringing that desire and that just sensual feeling back into me. And I just said that to him the other day. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what is happening to me. I was like, but I am so horny and so turned on, and so not in the way that I want to have sex with him or I want to be sexy for him, just in my own way. I feel sexy about myself just from this experience and from going internal and discovering things about myself and giving myself that time and space to do that, which I had been really lacking. And that's why I couldn't enjoy being with my boyfriend, because I didn't have it with myself first.
Amazing. Yes. And what we get, thank you for sharing that, Emily. What we get when we start connecting to these archetypes and we start connecting to Aphrodite is this understanding that this energy is something that we always have access to. It is our own resource, and it's not about somebody else. Like the other person gets to share that with us, but we always have that ability to tap in and connect to that on our own first. So I'm so glad that you're having that experience and you're getting to see like, oh, this is about me. And then like we can share that, we can rekindle that, but this is all about my own connection. So beautiful. I'd love to hear from one more person. How about Sarah? We haven't heard from you. Hi, Sarah. Do you feel completely like I just put you on the spot?
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. I'm actually in San Francisco this week, which is really great to not be in my snowy Colorado residence. So I'm excited to do some of this homework here this week. I think it's auspicious that I'm here in non-winter time. But yeah, I forget who shared first. Tiffany, I feel the same way. Like I have just been go, go, go. That goal-oriented work. And so this will be a good practice to get into my body.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's so good to see your face and hear your voice. And all right, ladies, we're pretty much over time here, and I don't want to keep you too long because I know, especially on the East Coast, it's really, really late. So I'm gonna go ahead and say goodnight, but let's do one ma chant. I'm gonna unmute everybody, and then we'll do unmute all. And I think we can see everybody, and we'll do 3 ma chants together to close out. Actually, 1 ma chant. We'll just do 1. Okay, one just full on Aphrodite ma chant. So go ahead and close your eyes. Inhaling. All right, beauties. Good night. See you next week. Have fun.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.